Something is quietly sabotaging your life, and you don't even see it happening. It's stealing opportunities from you, weakening your discipline, draining your confidence, and making your future smaller than it should be. If you keep watching for the next few minutes, you'll understand exactly what's been limiting you, and you'll learn how the Stoics stopped this invisible enemy before it destroyed their potential. Keep listening, because once you see this truth, you can't unsee it. Most people think their biggest problems are external: money, time, stress, difficult people, unexpected setbacks. But the Stoics knew the real threat was always internal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is the source of its own suffering," and he meant that most people are defeated long before life ever touches them. You become your own obstacle, and you don't even realize it. You sabotage your life the moment you let your mind run without discipline. Epictetus said that an undisciplined mind becomes like a fevered body, reacting to everything, stable for nothing. Thoughts pull you in 1,000 directions, impulses scatter your focus, emotions hijack your decisions, and suddenly your life feels chaotic even when nothing catastrophic is happening. The inner storm is what creates the outer mess. And here's what most people miss. The chaos isn't caused by your circumstances. It's caused by your reaction to them. You're not overwhelmed by what's happening. You're overwhelmed by what you're telling yourself about what's happening. The story you create in your mind becomes more powerful than reality itself. Another form of sabotage is the way you interpret setbacks. A minor inconvenience becomes a catastrophe in your head, and a temporary delay becomes a permanent defeat. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, but modern minds still imagine the worst before anything even happens. The emotional cost of rehearsing failure is often greater than failure itself. Think about the last time something didn't go according to plan. How long did you spend replaying it? How many conversations did you have in your head about what went wrong? How much energy did you burn on something that was already over? That's self-sabotage. You're punishing yourself for being human, for making mistakes, for not being perfect. And in doing so, you're stealing energy from the next opportunity, the next attempt, the next version of yourself that could actually succeed. The past gets all your attention while the future starves. You also sabotage yourself when you give your energy to things that don't matter. Marcus Aurelius scolded himself for wasting time on what other people say, think, or do. He knew that every minute spent worrying about opinions was a minute stolen from building the life he wanted. The truth is painful. You lose more from distraction than from difficulty. How many hours have you spent scrolling through social media, consuming other people's highlights, while your own life sits in the background waiting for attention? How many days have you wasted worrying about what someone said, what they might think, whether they approve of you? That energy could have gone into your health, your skills, your relationships, your dreams. Instead, it evaporated into the void of other people's perceptions. Your environment plays a quiet but powerful role in this sabotage. Epictetus said you must avoid people who weaken your will because their habits infect your mind. If your surroundings normalize procrastination, negativity, or apathy, you will unconsciously adopt those same patterns. You become like the people around you, whether you intend to or not. This is why the Stoics were obsessive about choosing their company carefully. They understood that your environment isn't neutral. It's either lifting you or dragging you down. There's no middle ground. If you're surrounded by people who complain constantly, you'll start complaining. If you're surrounded by people who make excuses, you'll start making excuses. If you're surrounded by mediocrity, mediocrity will feel normal, and the most dangerous part, you won't even notice it happening. The shift is gradual, invisible, until one day you wake up and realize you've become someone you never intended to be. Your environment shaped you while you were too distracted to notice. The people you spend time with are either building you or breaking you. There's no neutral ground. Another sabotage comes from believing you need more time. You wait for motivation, clarity, courage, the perfect moment, none of which arrive. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you could leave life right now, not to be dramatic, but to stay awake. Delaying your potential is the slowest form of self-destruction because you don't notice the damage until years have passed. The lie of someday is one of the most comforting and most destructive beliefs you can hold. Someday I'll start. Someday I'll change. Someday I'll be ready. But someday never comes. Because there will always be a reason to wait. There will always be something else that needs to happen first. There will always be one more excuse. And while you're waiting, life is moving, time is passing, opportunities are disappearing, and the person you could have become is fading into the background of who you actually are. The gap between who you are and who you could be grows wider every day you delay. You sabotage yourself when you cling to the illusion of control. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on separating what is and isn't within your power. Yet most people still try to control outcomes, timing, and how others behave. The more you cling, the more anxious you become, because life refuses to bend to your grip. You can't control whether you get the job, but you can control how you prepare for the interview. You can't control whether someone loves you, but you can control how you show up. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the effort. And yet, most people exhaust themselves trying to control everything except the one thing they actually can, themselves. You also sabotage your life by obeying every emotion as if it were a command. The Stoics never denied emotions, they denied emotional tyranny. Seneca compared impulses to wild animals, acknowledge them, but never hand them the keys. The moment you let emotion dictate your response, you surrender your power to whatever mood drifts through you. You feel angry, so you lash out. You feel anxious, so you avoid. You feel tired, so you quit. You feel uninspired, so you procrastinate. But emotions are signals, not orders. They're information, not instruction. And when you treat them as commands, you become a passenger in your own life, tossed around by whatever feeling happens to be strongest in the moment. You lose your agency one emotional reaction at a time. Another subtle sabotage is your relationship with time. You treat your future as a guarantee instead of a fragile opportunity. And because of that, you waste hours, days, months repeating the same comfortable patterns. The Stoics understood that time poverty, not money poverty, is the real human crisis. Seneca wrote an entire essay on this called On the Shortness of Life, and his central argument was brutal. Life isn't short, you're just wasting it. You have enough time to build something meaningful. You have enough time to get in shape. You have enough time to learn a skill, start a business, repair a relationship. But you don't have enough time to waste and still achieve those things. Every hour spent on meaningless distraction is an hour stolen from your potential, and you can never get it back. The clock doesn't stop because you weren't paying attention. You sabotage yourself when you outsource your self-worth. Epictetus said, "If you depend on externals for happiness, you will always be a slave." Yet most people still rely on approval, attention, praise, or success to feel valuable. The problem isn't that these things are bad. It's that they're unstable, unpredictable, and temporary. When your self-worth depends on other people's opinions, you give them power over your peace. When your self-worth depends on success, you collapse every time you fail. When your self-worth depends on being liked, you become a performer instead of a person. The Stoics taught that worth comes from character, not circumstances. The search for validation becomes another form of self-sabotage. Marcus Aurelius told himself repeatedly to ignore applause and criticism because both are contaminants to the mind. When you build your identity from what others think, Your foundation cracks the moment those opinions shift. No external voice should have the power to rewrite your worth. You post something hoping for likes. You say something hoping for approval. You do something hoping for recognition. And when you don't get it, you feel diminished. But the truth is, you were already diminished the moment you handed your value to someone else. You gave away your power for a few digital hearts and brief moments of validation. And now you need more, and more, and more, because external validation is an addiction that never satisfies. The hunger only grows. You also sabotage your potential by chasing comfort. Seneca wrote that soft living makes people mentally fragile, and he was right. When your life revolves around avoiding discomfort, you avoid the very challenges that make you strong. Every comfort you indulge becomes a chain that keeps you weak, passive, and dependent. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, not because they hated themselves, but because they understood that strength is built through resistance. You don't build muscle by lifting light weights. You don't build resilience by avoiding hardship. You don't build discipline by choosing the easy path every time. Comfort feels safe, but it's quietly eroding your capacity to handle difficulty. And when real hardship comes, and it will, you won't be ready. You'll break where you should have bent. You'll collapse where you should have stood firm. You sabotage your future every time you let fear decide what you do next. The Stoics treated fear as a distortion, not a truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is endurable, endure it. If it is avoidable, remove it." But fear often whispers that difficulty is danger and discomfort is doom, when in reality those are the pathways to growth. Fear tells you to stay small. Fear tells you not to try. Fear tells you that failure is fatal, that rejection is devastating, that discomfort is dangerous. But the Stoics understood that most of what we fear never happens. And even when it does, we're far more capable of handling it than we imagine. The real danger isn't the thing you're afraid of. The real danger is living your entire life according to fear's rules. Most people sabotage themselves by rejecting responsibility for their own life. Epictetus told his students that blaming others is the behavior of children, and blaming oneself is the first sign of maturity. But taking ownership scares people, because it means they must confront the ways they failed themselves. Responsibility is heavy, but freedom is always on the other side of it. As long as you blame your circumstances, your upbringing, your job, your lack of resources, other people, you remain powerless. Because if it's their fault, it's also their responsibility to fix it. But when you take ownership, when you say, "This is my life and I'm responsible for what I do with it," suddenly you have power again. Suddenly you have agency. Suddenly you can change. The moment you accept responsibility is the moment you reclaim your life. No more excuses. No more victim mentality. Just you, your choices, and what you do with them. Another subtle sabotage is how you speak to yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal to correct his own thinking, not because he was weak, but because he understood that the mind must be coached like a student. Most people let their inner voice bully them, insult them, and talk them out of their potential. If you spoke to a friend the way you speak to yourself, you wouldn't have any friends left. You tell yourself you're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. You tell yourself you'll fail, that people will judge you, that you don't deserve success. And then you wonder why you lack confidence, why you hesitate, why you never follow through. Your inner dialogue becomes your reality, and if that dialogue is poisonous, your life will reflect it. You can't build a strong future with a voice that constantly tears you down. The Stoics knew this. They practiced self-correction, not self-destruction. You sabotage your growth by refusing stillness. Seneca warned that to do nothing is not to be idle, meaning stillness is a discipline, not laziness. The Stoics believed the mind clarifies itself when you step out of noise, but modern life is a constant feed of stimulation, leaving no space for introspection, no room for wisdom, no silence to hear your own thoughts. You wake up and immediately grab your phone. You fill every quiet moment with content, music, noise. You avoid being alone with your thoughts because it's uncomfortable, but the Stoics knew that clarity comes from stillness. Wisdom comes from reflection. Growth comes from sitting with yourself, honestly, without distraction. When you refuse stillness, you refuse self-awareness. And without self-awareness, you can't change. Another sabotage is your refusal to forgive yourself. You replay mistakes, revisit failures, and reopen wounds that should have healed. Epictetus said, "Every habit begins with small steps, and this includes the habit of self-compassion." You cannot build a stronger future on a foundation of self-punishment. You beat yourself up for things that happened years ago. You hold yourself hostage to past versions of yourself who didn't know what you know now. But that's not accountability, that's self-destruction, and it's keeping you stuck. You sabotage your confidence by looking too far ahead. Marcus Aurelius constantly brought himself back to the present moment because he knew the mind invents suffering when it travels too far into the future. When you focus on the next 1,000 steps instead of the next one, your mind collapses under the weight of imagined difficulty. Present moment action is the antidote to overwhelm. You look at the mountain and think, "I'll never make it." But you're not supposed to climb the whole mountain right now. You're supposed to take the next step, focus on what's in front of you, do the next right thing, and then the next. That's how mountains get climbed, not in one giant leap, but in thousands of small, consistent steps. You sabotage your meaning by living without purpose. The Stoics believed that a person without direction becomes a plaything of impulses. If your day has no anchor, distraction wins. If your life has no mission, fear wins. Purpose is not found, it is chosen, built, and maintained through daily action. Without purpose, you drift, you react, you consume, you survive, but you don't truly live. Purpose gives you direction. It gives you a reason to push through discomfort, to stay disciplined, to keep going when motivation fades. It transforms struggle from senseless suffering into meaningful sacrifice, and that makes all the difference. You also sabotage yourself by forgetting your mortality. Seneca said, "You live as if you were destined to live forever," calling this the greatest mistake. When you forget that time is finite, you behave as if every opportunity can be taken later. But later is the most dangerous word in the human language. You have less time than you think. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. The Stoics meditated on death not to be morbid, but to stay present, to remember that this moment matters, that today counts, that you don't get to waste your life and then complain it was too short. Death isn't the enemy. Living like you're immortal is. The Stoics had a simple rule: stop dying before you die, stop abandoning your dreams, stop burying your potential. Stop living small when you were born capable of courage, wisdom, and greatness. You have everything you need to stop sabotaging yourself. You have the awareness now. You have the tools. You have the truth. The question is, what will you do with it? If this message hits something deep within you, like the part of you that knows you've been living below your potential, then take a moment and breathe. Stop the sabotage. Reclaim your mind, reclaim your time, reclaim your inner authority. And if you want more Stoic wisdom like this, unfiltered, practical, and life-changing, like this video and subscribe. Your future self is already thanking you.